usually wake up around 3:30, start my morning prayer, get myself together, get prepared to start my journey so I can get to work. I'm stuck at making $60 a day, 5 days a week. Most jobs today are doing background checks. If it's something that they see that they don't like, they're not going to hire you.
Thank you, sir. Please have a seat.
I was in jail for 30 days. Charge was reckless conduct, and that's a misdemeanor. From that time, my life, it just took a different turn. Yeah, it took a different turn.
Studies suggest that 1 in 3 Americans has some criminal record. And that means that 1 in 3 Americans has some barrier to maximizing their potential and really having the full benefits of American citizenship. And I think it's also important to note this. It doesn't mean that arrest resulted in a conviction, and it doesn't mean that the person is guilty of the offense. But simply having that arrest can have a very, very detrimental effect.
It puts you in a rock and a hard place, especially if you're trying to go on the right path. You have been going on the right path, but your past just keeps coming back to haunt you.
I was young at the time. I had lost my dad when I was 8 years old, and I made a lot of mistakes,
I had to live with this, what I consider a scarlet letter, over my life, and I just felt like it wasn't fair. And some people told me, oh, it's 30 years ago, who cares? But I cared because that was my name, that was my integrity, that was my reputation.
I graduated from high school in 1980, and then I went into the Air Force in '83. This is me in K-9 school and me in Rex. I left the Air Force in '87, graduated from University of Pennsylvania in '93. Regardless of what my certifications say, regardless of what my degrees say, everything is fine until they start doing the background check. It's like a luggage that you can never, you can't set it down. You can't do it because it's always there. Doesn't matter where you go,
Having to check a box and state that you've been arrested can create a barrier to employment. Going further though, public housing, the loss of the opportunity to serve our military. There are issues with obtaining federal financial aid if there's a drug arrest. And so the opportunity to be the full measure of an American citizen can certainly be limited and are limited by a criminal arrest record.
We have people who are outside, and yet, in a real sense, they're locked up. They're not in jail, and yet they're handcuffed, walking around with the stigma of an arrest record as an albatross around their backs.
The state of Georgia has one of the highest rates of incarceration and arrests in any state in the country. I saw roughly 45,000 people every year going through our jail system, and 90% of them were African American men. And about 80% of them were high school dropouts, and about 75% of them read on a 3rd or 4th grade level. So I looked at ways that we can minimize this flow through of individuals. And I learned about this process of a one-stop shop public event, bringing in ex-offenders and expunging their records.
The runner will take the ticket, go back to the secure room where only the people that are GCIC certified can go. They'll get the folder and we'll start the process from there.
Bringing in courts and law enforcement and the public defender and the district attorney.
They will leave today with the order to seal their record, and they will leave today with the clean GCIC to show that their record has been restricted. All right, thank you.
We were able to reduce a typical 120-day process in a 1-day process.
This is huge. That means you have something on there that's no longer on there, which means you have a clean slate, okay? You have a clean slate.
And I thought it was also important to have a respectable faith leader to do this new initiative. And Raphael Warnock, who I respect a lot, and I approached him and we decided to collaborate. I would get the justice partners of Fulton County to work together, and he would provide his house of worship as a venue, a safe space to have this one-day summit.
Well, hello, everybody. Good morning. And I have to tell you that this was one of the proudest moments in my ministry. I have had no prouder moment than the Saturday when I walked into my sanctuary and looked across and saw a sea of faces. And I knew that virtually everybody in church that day had a record. And for me, that was a spiritual experience because this was making grace real and literally changing people's lives. This church is most famously known as the spiritual home of Martin Luther King Jr. We praise God for this blessed day that the Lord has made. He is a part of a long spiritual lineage in which we tie faith to freedom fighting. Dr. King's work was to redeem the soul of America. And this is just one more opportunity through these expungement events to address the ways in which the tentacles of mass incarceration are wrapped around the throats of people of color and are literally suffocating our communities to death.
The system that is in place right now is not a fair one. There is a racial and economic inequity in the prison system in our country, and that's something that should raise red flags for all religious faiths.
So you'll just want to go ahead and input that here as well, maybe.
We have some volunteers from the temple who are helping us summarize criminal records for the prosecutors so that they can look at them easily and figure out what they're going to be able to restrict and seal from an individual's record as we prepare for the summit that's coming up in November.
Arrest date 10/30/2000, Atlanta Police Department.
The ultimate goal of the event is to get it off of both their official record and to get the clerk's file sealed so it's no longer public record, so the private background check companies can't report it. Just because it's been restricted from the GCIC report doesn't mean that the clerk's file is actually sealed.
I'm in a position now where I've been doing this line work with AT&T. They're in the process of hiring me. Everything is good. I did the drug testing, I did the stress test, I did everything else. They're waiting for the background to come back.
Time expired.
Once I get through this expungement situation in Fulton County, I should be all right.
Restricting the record of a person is actually a very positive thing because it minimizes the likelihood of that individual to recommit a crime, because you take away the barriers that that individual has in terms of getting a job.
If you want to lessen mass incarceration, if you want to lessen the crime rate, you've got to provide people something to do. You've got to give people a vehicle to take care of their families. The record restrictions program, and let me tell you, it's remarkable that in the states allowing the records restrictions for nonviolent felonies and nonviolent misdemeanors, the crime rate went down. It dropped in every one of those 38 states. But because of the arrest record, they can't get a job. I believe that this records restrictions project is geared to give people an opportunity to get jobs, to be employed, and take care of their families.
Today's event is a true collaboration. But this is also an opportunity of restoring dignity back into the hearts of deserving individuals within our community.
The expungement summits that we've done here in the Atlanta metro area is just a start. It's a first step, and the only way that you can solve it is people roll up their sleeves and get involved.
Today is about second chances. None of us wants to be judged permanently on the basis of our worst day. What we're hoping to do ultimately through these expungements is to raise the conversation about the terrible public policy decision that we as a country have made in the last 50 years when we should have invested in people, we invested in prisons. the land of the free has become the incarceration capital of the world. No other country comes close in terms of sheer numbers or the percentage of its population warehoused in prison. That's not right. We ought to fix it. And the faith community really ought to be leading the way because we have all of this language about faith and grace. We, better than any other community, can do much.
Record restriction is the mirror of our times, reflecting the unresolved racism and economic inequity that still exists in our society.
The Bible says in Hebrew, tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Justice, justice shall you pursue. And it's a reminder to us that there is nothing as important as the pursuit of justice. We have to pursue it. The Hebrew word rodef, we have to chase after justice, that it's not something that is going to happen by itself, but we have to be active participants chasing after justice every single day.
It's an incredibly important part of our faith and belief that everybody needs to be treated with respect and dignity, no matter what our station in life.
This is our third event this year. Each one has been more successful than the last, and each time we have stories from citizens who have benefited from the opportunity to have a second chance.
I've always been told, no, I'm sorry, or you'll have to pay an attorney. For the first time in 30 years, someone said to me, yes, we can help you.
And I can just tell you from the reaction that I've seen from the people today, I mean, we had people that were in tears because this was so important to them.
Long time coming in. I know, right?
And if for any elected official in any community, if that's not important to you, then you're in the wrong business.
Today is a new day. It's a new lease on life. Just being able to live again, just not being able to have someone hold something against you that was that should have just been resolved years ago.
I'm Raphael Warnock, Senior Pastor of the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church, and I want to invite you to join me and other faith leaders in planning an expungement event in your house of faith. The United States of America warehouses 25% of the world's prisoners, and when we consider that 70 million Americans have a criminal arrest record, these expungement events are just one tool in the toolbox of addressing our faith to this massive carceral state. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that our lives begin to end the day that we are silent about the things that matter. Let's raise our voices of faith and moral courage. Learn how you can plan an expungement event right in your area.